The X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, the X Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome to the X Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell, and for the next 4 hours, I'm your host and your guide as together we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And the X Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until 2 a.m. Eastern, right here on the Talkstar Radio Network, X Zone Broadcast Network, UK High Definition Radio, Euro High Definition Radio, Star Cable, and xzonetv.com. If you'd like to give us a call, toll-free worldwide, 1-800-610-7035. My email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com. And our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. X Zone Nation, my first guest this hour, the first hour of tonight's show, is George Lobuono. And after doing a graduate study concentrating on the underside of U.S. history, George reported for the Suttertown News in Sacramento, then covered the 1993 presidential elections in Indonesia for Pacifica Radio Network, and investigated deep politics and black budget crimes. In 1995, he began to research aliens and alien-related programs in the United States government, and he also serves as a board member of a free legal clinic in Sacramento, California. We're going to be talking to George this hour about his book, and it's all about, are you ready for this? Alien minds. George, welcome to the X Zone.
Thank you, Rob.
George, what is your book all about?
Well, it's an attempt to do a new treatment on the subject that many people are interested in, aliens.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, this is a new approach in that it's trying to look at how aliens themselves think. Not so much how we think about aliens,
Mm-hmm.
but given that we're long past, according to many sources, first contact, some even official sources, and many people in government, certainly contactees, abductees, and so forth, I think we now have enough evidence to talk about how aliens actually think and how they communicate, interact between aliens and between alien societies. So it's an attempt to greatly expand the map and not just look at from Earth to whatever.
Right.
It used to be people think, the aliens came and visited, and it was just what was little dots in our sky here or there. It's an attempt to almost forget that we're here and think about how aliens think and interact between themselves.
So I'd be safe in saying that you're a believer?
Well, I wouldn't use the word believer. You could say that I conclude that aliens exist beyond what I would consider a doubt. Of course, certainly my own personal experience.
All right, you and I will talk more on the other side of this 2-minute commercial break. George Lobuono is our special guest, X Zone Nation, www.alienmindbook.com. And George's book is available as well as at Amazon.com. 1-800-610-7035, worldwide toll-free. Email xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com. And our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. I'll be back on the other side of this 2-minute commercial break as we continue talking about aliens this hour here on the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell. Don't go away.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
Exonation George Lobuono is our special guest. He is the author of Alien Mind. His website, www.alienmindbook.org, and Alien Mind is available at Amazon.com. All right, George, have you ever had an experience or a sighting?
Well, yes. Until 1995, I was skeptical that aliens could arrive here because of Einstein's speed of light limitation. And suddenly, along comes 1995, a contact in my case, and which continued. It was very different from me. It was essentially kind of a telepathic, people call it remote communication,
right.
Remote sensing. And it was very different from me, more intelligent, very much beyond. I'm a person who went through college on a scholarship. I thought myself smart, and this was far beyond me, and was directly trying to was suggesting a kind of how an extra-dimensional geometry or extra-dimensional sort of relationship would be in graphics that were about like 5 to 7 ideas all packed into one at one time, which is what the reports are from different contactees, abductees, and other people, that the primary means of communication among aliens is telepathy, and the reason being is that you can communicate much more than you do with just a few words. You can communicate the ideas, the graphics, relationships, a little bit of a mathematical sort of, it's more about the geometry, I suppose, in many ways, and even the past and future context in some cases. So that's what happened in 1995. And here, 15 years later, after a number of years, I got better at it and decided that I would write a book on the subject because, I got interested in aliens, started reading about them. It's new for some people, but it's a good subject to have a look at because there are some very interesting, very reliable sources on it. People who've seen, had direct experiences in government, in official services, aviators, and so forth.
George, what kind of information were you getting from these communications from the ETs?
Well, as I said, very much unlike me. It was a hint, I guess you could say first it was about the science relationships. I was interested in the science of like black holes, physics, cosmic physics, astrophysics, and the unexplained relationships and whether things could actually go faster than light or whether there was a new kind of physics. And a lot actually sort of hinted at that, and it was more kind of an attempt to challenge me. I studied the underside of U.S. history, and I was interested in astronomy. And I think the only reason that I would have been contacted is that it had already been going on, because I wouldn't be the first person to contact. And the assumption would have been that I was going to investigate and write about some new aspects. And so, I work in investigative journalism. I've done that kind of writing. And I found out a lot that I think is worth reporting.
All right. If the aliens use telepathy, if I can use that word, to communicate with us, how would one communicate with the aliens back? Would we also use telepathy to contact them and continue the communication?
Good question. Well, first off, I'd say this. Some people think, telepathy, sure, it's kind of woo-woo. But if they don't realize that the human brain itself has brain frequencies going from about 5 hertz to about 30 hertz, means cycles per second. And the range of frequencies from 5 to about 11 hertz is what are called ELS. They're long wavelengths, they're low frequencies. And for example, Philip Corso, I don't know if you've heard of him.
Sure, yeah.
Colonel Philip Corso, who wrote a whole book about what he did with downed Roswell, he said, alien technology, and about how the whole Pentagon was suddenly mobilized to study and find out about aliens because of that and subsequent events. Corso wrote that the first thing that military scientists noticed down in the United States were that the alien brain of one surviving alien from the Roswell crash emitted this long, low frequency wavelength. And here's why it would be doing that. It's because our scientists have found out, a University of scientists, a Chicago scientist is famous for proving that ELS, or those long wavelengths, can go right through solid objects, meaning that telepathy is immediately possible if those kind of wavelengths in a more, it's the wavelengths of your more rested, kind of almost empty state of mind. So when you're your mind is in a almost blank state, relaxed or very resting, these wavelengths can pass right through, and that would be a basis for telepathy. There's a new kind of physics that would allow for telepathy also, and that's this new kind of energy relationship that people talk about. They call it zero-point energy or scalar electromagnetism, electrogravity. It's all the same thing, and it's a new kind of energy relationship. It's like a resonance, and it almost proceeds, it's nearly instant across some distances, which some people think is weird, but again, the last word on physics was not the 20th century. So, yeah, if an alien communicated with you, and if that occurred, the first thing you'd have to remember is it's their norm. That's how they do. They have mouths. They can probably speak if they want to, but because they have a technology that can amplify brain wave frequencies, more than one alien could be communicating at the time. And so if they were communicating with you, the first thing you would think is like, wow, it's like I don't have any privacy anymore, and that's how you feel. But then the next thing you start thinking is they can pick up on me, I can pick up on them. And which is ironic because psychologists have found that, for example, when we think about words, we think words in our head. Mm-hmm. Believe it or not, the human vocal cords are actually vibrating when you're thinking those words because the brain cycles into the body, of course. Well, the same with aliens. If you were telepathically communicating with an alien, what their thoughts would be cycling into their physiology, and you would get a faded, but a very distinct sense of what that alien is like. And the question being is that what do they look like? What are they like? Can you figure that out in telepathy? You would be able to do that over time, and you'd have to practice your skills. The first thing you would notice, the first thing I noticed with aliens is it's more subtle. Theirs is like a faded, more subdued version. It's not the big, huge graphics or the big, loud words that we have at first. Instead, it's a multiplicity of ideas. It's like the whole tree of ideas. And some of it is amplified in a sense. Some of it is sort of posed behind. It's how, when if you're thinking words, just one word at a time. But all the ideas surrounding those words, that's where telepathy occurs for the most part. You could be more resonant, loud in a sense. But yeah, you would be communicating back and forth with an alien if that occurred.
George, based on what you know, what are alien priorities here?
That's a good question. Well, I would say this. I would pull back and look at what the larger spectrum or the larger context of aliens shows. And that shows that the first priority is I guess, a basic neighborly thing among aliens, or kind of an ecological consideration. And that would be, first off, humans are just developing with a new variety of technologies, some of which could be dangerous. How did we do, for example, when we got nuclear weapons? Did humans do well with those? Well, it was pretty ugly and pretty stupid in some ways, the way that it went out, at first. But then we got over that, and that moderated and was almost set aside. And so the question is whether we can do that with some of the succeeding technologies, and whether we can exist as a peaceful and no threat to our neighbors should we venture into space, which everyone is certain that we will eventually do with more advanced technology. So I think the first thing aliens look at and wonder about is, well, help humans get up to basic speed, help them with maybe some science. Don't try to push them or try to tell them what to do or make them a certain way, by you taking control as an alien. Make humans responsible for themselves. But that's one alien perspective. Another alien perspective might be, let's say a large group of aliens could arrive here, and there are some reports, for example, that the so-called Greys are part of a larger group, and might think it's best that the human population is essentially tucked into their alignment and becomes a part of their grouping, and so that wouldn't be so much trying to make us self-sufficient. It would be more a matter of getting us involved under their umbrella in a sense. But I think that the main concern among aliens is essentially the universal energy ecology, because the new technologies can affect the energy ecology of some of the near space, I guess you could say, environments. You could even affect your star or the seismic structure of your planet if you used them stupidly, which is the big challenge for us, I suppose, at first. If alien technology is essentially raining down on our planet under some circumstances, then we have to really be careful about what we're doing with it. So that's what aliens would be concerned about, is getting us to be, more civilized, to know more about aliens, and finally to, I guess, be sort of integrated into some networks of treaties and conventions in a much larger sense.
Tell me, do you believe that these aliens pose a threat to the inhabitants of this planet? Are they here to herd us into corrals and then munch away on us?
Well, first thing I'd say is you have to make distinctions about aliens. That the universe is huge. There are 7 with 21 zeros after it number of stars so far, according to one estimate in the universe. There are billions of galaxies, and some galaxies, large ones, have hundreds of billions of galaxies in them. Hundreds of billions of stars in them. So that makes for a lot of stars and huge distances in between in some cases. So they're going to be big populations. They're going to be many different sort of government structures. The thing we're noticing, for the most part, according to reports, is that aliens are all equalitarian. And the reason being is that apparently it's either thought or it just works out that societies that don't get over this sort of rich versus poor and that kind of competition, the destructiveness and the bad ecology, don't really make it. And so they learn that equal sharing becomes a better way. And I think they learn from other aliens, because other aliens already have this kind of society. It's just a logical way of just completing the circle. So the first thing you'd have to do is you look at the larger context. There's some aliens who might want, for example, to think, we need the resources. These people have genes. We want to use their genes. We'd like to have a base possibly in their area. Other aliens might think you don't want to disturb them. And the aliens who essentially want to add us to their kind of umbrella and us to become a stop along their trading route might think, feed them some of our technology, but get more control over them. Where maybe our neighbor aliens might think, let them be. Help them along slowly. Make sure they learn their lesson before you just barge in and start trying to manipulate. And so there are different alien approaches. And I think what most people think is they tend to look at, for example, the reports of abductions. And those are people who have similar reports, and they've spoken to psychologists and sometimes other researchers.
Hey, George, you and I have to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. Very interesting topic, very interesting guest. George Lobuono is my special guest this hour. We're talking about his new book, Alien Mind. His website is www.alienmindbook.org, and Alien Mind is available at Amazon.com. I'll be back on the other side of this break after the news. Don't go away.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
George Lobuono is my special guest this hour, Exonation. We're talking about his new book entitled Alien Mind. It's available at Amazon.com. And George's website is www.alienmindbook.org. George, if the aliens are here, and if we have been communicating with them And if the government was well aware that something crashed at Roswell, New Mexico, going back to 1947, and if the fact is true that alien entities were recovered by the U.S. military and brought to an underground base where apparently they still might be living, why is the government still insisting that the Roswell crash never happened?
Well, I think it would be for three different reasons. One is the notion of aliens, intelligent beings with advanced technology that essentially are all egalitarian societies, not necessarily totally equal in how one society treats or, reacts regarding another society. I should say responds. But they're like that, and that's a challenge to the social order that we have now. Everybody probably sees, in a sense, for a fact that for us to ever get it right, we're going to have to, make everybody on this planet live decently, bring people up at the bottom. You don't have, war at the top. But people see that in the future, somehow, somewhere, that is going to occur. It's just logical. We keep evolving with technology and so forth. Well, second, that's a challenge. Second challenge would be there's a question of technology, who has it, who makes money off of it, and who uses it, and whether it has security implications. It might have some, but and the third challenge would be, I suppose, it would just be this kind of the inertia. People are slow in responding. You could have an alien craft fly right over a crowd, and some people would see it if it was very visible. And because it's not what they're expecting to see, they won't even do anything about having seen it. People are slow to want to acknowledge new things that would cause them to change or question a lot. So those three things sort of pose, it's a kind of a security challenge, a change of the old order, and also it's just very, very different for the average person in their daily life. But what I should say is, the alien technology is one thing, but what's more important is alien science. Not just telepathy. The fact, I'm sitting here talking about aliens and communicating with them. Well, the truth is anyone can do it. It doesn't. Every single brain has the same ability to do what I do, and anyone can learn how. And it's actually easier than you think. If you look at my book, it goes very far in trying to explain how that can be done in the easy science and how you do it. I could summarize it in a nutshell. The science, there's a new kind of science, and what scientists are finding is that, for example, when light waves converge on the same point, you may have done this in high school, where when the light wave, or when it's exactly opposite another wave going on the same point, and the two wave humps, the one going one way, the one going the other way, are exactly opposite each other, they cancel out. And when light waves do this, converging on the same point, this happens partly in every nucleus, in every atom in your head, probably. It creates what's called a standing wave. In other words, the energy is there, it's still moving along, but the question is, it's looking for an outlet. Where did it really go? Because the wave just disappeared. Well, what scientists have found, you can sort of pulse amplify that whole flow of energy so that it kind of cycles down into the nucleus or into a slightly deeper part of, I guess you'd call it space-time, while at the same time it expands way out. It can have almost immediate kind of resonance from here to a distant place. That can be done in telepathy. It's done in alien technology, but it's very easy to do. The brain has just trillions of little spots where curvature is, atoms all over and curves in it, and you don't have to really think too much about doing it, but you have to calm your mind, and then this sort of happens. I talk about how it feels. In an alien's mind, let's go inside of an alien's head. We tend to think kind of slowly. Well, aliens, because their technology is already interacting like this, and because their physics is already about fast shifts and sometimes almost instantaneous communication across rather large distances, and even travels of that sort, because it's like that, I think what they've evolved is an idea that their brain impulses can be more subtle, a little bit more faded, but faster. It's like, you have those thousands of little ideas surrounding everything you're going to say and do. You walk upstairs, you're seeing a million different things, and you're doing all kinds of complex geometry. It's kind of like calculus while you're going upstairs, believe it or not, while doing about 10 different other things. But that's what, in an alien brain, would be like, if you look at a little bird, how they shift and they move really, really fast, you almost can't see them. That's what the shifts in an alien brain's thoughts are like. But it's not just, a linear shift. It's like a resonance. It's like it's resonating between different parts, and sometimes resonating, as Corso explained, further out, this kind of low, this long wavelength was apparently going out and somehow interacting with technology is what scientists first thought. And of course, as people have developed their contacts and their reports about aliens over the years, since 1947, that's 63 years ago, we've learned a lot. And now people are aware that anyone can do this kind of telepathy, or I would call it remote sensing. And the alien version of that, it's not what, you read about military remote sensing in the United States or some, like the Soviet Union, and they said they have control. They go through, their brain goes through a kind of a tunnel to distant places or even time. The CIA trained hundreds of people to do this, by the way, because they think there's definitely something in it. Well, an alien version of it is more immediate. It's faster shift, it's not so much a kind of a tunnel thing with a control person. It's a regular, expected thing. And among aliens, telepathy is considered a reliable basis for evidence. In other words, for investigating, finding things out, because they have technology reportedly. It's called psychotronic technology that is both mind-sensitive. It can sense what minds do, and it can also be activated by minds in both directions. Because they have that, what we think of thoughts that just disappear into the vacuum, in alien technology, some of that can be recorded, apparently. And that's also a big new step in our awareness, if such is the case.
It seems that a lot of New Age practitioners are saying that we should meditate more, and I'm just wondering if meditation actually plays into the actual communicating with aliens, because you open up your mind, you clear your mind of all the cobwebs and all the thoughts, and you're able to focus.
Well, I'm not really a person who meditates, but what I would say is clearing your mind, definitely, because what you do is you suspend preconception. A Buddhist would say, well, it's called seeing with beginner's eyes. You're aware and you can acknowledge and you can actually see that something is different from what you may have thought before. So clearing your mind is of course necessary in order to do this kind of sensing, because it's like you park your sense of your ego and yourself aside. I mean, you may have heard or read reports about gray aliens being cloned and being non-sexual, according to many abductees.
Yes, I've heard that.
Well, if you think about it, among aliens, that is probably not necessarily that body form. Obviously, there are sexual aliens, but the non-sexual sort of mode is the standard, I suppose, in communications. You have to park it aside, just like ego. Ego is tied into sexuality in us. And the thing about that is that, when you park those two aside, your mind is much more clear. And it's kind of expected that, sexuality is considered vulgar or just it's something you wouldn't want to sort of have interfere with communications in a larger sense.
How do you think the aliens view the universe?
I think they see the universe in terms of, well, it's much more alive than we think, because for two reasons. They interact telepathically, and they use these psychotronics to amplify. They have big networks of communications. They could communicate from one star system to another probably almost instantly. It's not absolutely instantly. Nothing is even possible absolutely instantly, from A to B. But they think of the universe as being a huge network of where there's complex mini societies, all of them very, very scientific, and that's what's really interesting. If you ever start to communicate with aliens, their science is just fascinating. The possibilities and the things they do. They've solved war. They've solved violence, reportedly. Now, I'm just saying this to you. Mm-hmm. It's like other people say, never accept what one person just says. Go out, test it, and find out for yourself. And if you ever interact in this way, you'll get the feel of it just immediately. Because alien communications are kind of in bursts. It's a much larger context all at one time. And so their societies, I think they see the universe as being a lot of interactions. Sometimes they're challenges, because some aliens will have more complex technology and they can really kind of manipulate, or they can maneuver in ways and do more. But in a sense, I think the more advanced the alien society is, the more they're kind of admired in a way, because there's a common theme shared among them, and that is nonviolence. The use of technology for ecological purposes. You don't want populations growing all over the place, because if you think about it, the universe could become very small and very crowded very quickly. And you have to reserve open spaces like planets all around. For example, our planet, you have to leave them open for the future. Some will die. Some planets will be destroyed by star kind of cycles, the way they grow up and go nova, supernova. And also, there could be new populations that will evolve, and we may want to expand at some point. But I think the main theme among aliens is the ecology, is to try to minimize population, try to not use the new technologies for weapons purposes. And I think they see the universe as being just almost difficult to comprehend because it's so awesome and amazing, and so much is possible.
We must be a challenge to them then, because we're everything that they're not.
Yeah, I mean, there's a quote. This is going to sound strange. Where one alien, in the communication, to me personally, I know it sounds weird to some people, talked about how we can be seen as quote hairheads. In that we're kind of primitive in that sense, and we're different. But I suppose in a sense, here's how we're seen. Also, is we've developed a sense of individual rights that can sometimes be repressed in large alien societies. And here's how that happens. Large telepathically or, mind-interacting societies, even interacting as groups in a sense, sometimes it's a question of, am I free to think certain things under those circumstances? And also, you have genetic engineering that can sometimes dim down the emotions that would be necessary for people to speak out and to critique and challenge the society.
Yeah.
And you also have because of alien science, some aliens who live very, very long. And imagine they become kind of numbed in a sense to the brutalities and things that they see. And they may sort of become repetitive in certain of their assumptions. So compared to us, we're new, we're making huge discoveries, we're evolving very quickly. Some alien societies aren't evolving as quickly. And they may look at us and think, wow, weird, kind of backward, and may not be, as dynamic as we are in a sense. If you know what I mean.
Yeah. I'm just having I'm just sitting here thinking about how somebody from the outside might actually look at this planet and its occupants. We can't get along with each other, so how in the name of heavens would we get along with an alien entity or an alien culture?
I think they look at us and think, the solutions to our problems are very simple. And I think actually in every person, there's some part of your mind that thinks, yeah, it would be easy to do. But there's this other part that comes dragging along behind you. It's like a stone. And some people would say, how could we ever get it right? Because we never have gotten it right. Well, imagine what would happen, say, if tomorrow you opened the papers and the headlines were, U.S. government, Canadian government admit that Roswell happened. They have joint programs, Europeans involved, Japanese consultants, even the Soviets. Alien technology exists, and then started talking about what they knew. Within a week, the idea of possibilities on this planet would be very, very different because people would think, how do aliens live? And how did they survive? And how can they do all this stuff that they do? And that is a huge potential. It's maybe the most, I don't want to say revolutionary, it's the biggest possible change probably in all of human history apart from, I don't know what, the written and the education of people, the written word.
I think before we start worrying about the existence of aliens and the governments of the world saying, yes, they are here, yes, Roswell happened, yes, we do have alien technology, I think we've got to learn to live with each other first. Because even if all this was to happen, even if all the governments of the world were to come clean, if they really are here, we wouldn't know how to handle it because we are still so self-righteous. We can't live with each other. How would we accept the fact that alien presence is really here?
Yeah, and what you see that the solution to that is that not to be so individual. In a sense, aliens are it's more about social identity. They complete the circle. And you can never live well, you can never be safe, you can never be at peace and not be, afraid.
Right.
You can never live it until you are making sure, making sure that everybody lives decently. Educated, medical care, and
fed, clothed, sheltered, and educated, as well as...
And then they're going to be capable to work much better and help out. They probably will want to.
Yeah, but you see, I've got a saying, George. Life is simple. Humans complicated.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think sometimes it's about... Here's another thing that happens is, you look at alien societies, all of a sudden your biggest secrets, in a sense, they never really were big secrets. There's a guy named Russell Targ.
Had him on the show a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, and Targ has a saying. He says the big secret is that there are no secrets.
Exactly.
And that's essentially the government's position.
George, stand by. You and I have to take our final break. Exonation, George Lobuono is our special guest. He's the author of Alien Mind. It's available at Amazon.com, and you can visit his website at www.alienmindbook.org. My name is Rob McConnell. We'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
George, what would you like the readers to walk away with after they've completed your book?
Well, first off, the book, they can read it either in paperback or they can read it free on my website. And I think what I'd want them to walk away, I forgot to say, the big secrets are no secrets. That's people who are in the know in these programs, not the regular government. Mm-hmm. What I want them to walk away with is, I guess, the idea that there's so much potential, and that there's new science and there are new possibilities. And there are, more importantly, it's not about the technology. Many people try to tell you that. That's a material viewpoint, and I think that could be a viewpoint of greed and, again, sort of, people trying to just hide from, the larger social realities. The greater implications are in the social implications, the communications, the new science, the new awareness. If there's a new kind of science, there is a different kind of validity in certain ideas. And there's certain questions that will have new answers. And I suppose when you arrive at those new answers, you're never the same as you were before, because when you have new ideas and your frame basis is different, you just go on. Mm-hmm. Another thing I wanted to mention too is aliens see themselves as fractions of a larger social whole, and the reason they do that is because the science that I was talking about, it's based on this one strange premise. It is that in the real science and physics of the universe, the only real whole number one that exists is not what you see, an object in front of you or your thumb, or it's the whole of the universe from the very beginnings of time to the very ends. And even there, it cycles back into itself through black holes. Everything else is fractional and it's fluctuating. And that's how it's kind of a hyperspace resonance occurs across distances, how the new physics of a different kind of energy demand. And that's why aliens define themselves, I suppose you could say, as fractions of a larger social whole. Sounds kind of new, interesting at first, but what it helps in allowing is that they also realize that you can never sort of draw a circle and say, we're only here. And all those other aliens out there, even for them, they don't matter because they all interact. And they have to get along. And actually they want to learn. There's nothing but curiosity out there. Because there's a new kind of science. Imagine, say, you live on a little island in the Pacific, mm-hmm. and here we are in the 21st century, and all of a sudden, all these different people start to arrive in their boats. You would start to wonder about what's going on in all those other places. Well, that's kind of where we are right now. There's so much out there. There's so much going on, and we're right on the verge of big changes, certainly in awareness. And like you say, yeah, we've got some improvements to do, but I think that they become more explicit as we become a little bit more farsighted in how we think.
George, I want to thank you so much for joining us this hour. It's been great talking to you. Congratulations on your book, Alien Mind, and I look forward to the next time you and I meet here in the X Zone.
Thank you, Rob.
Take care, George. George Lobuono, X Zone Nation. He is the author of Alien Mind. Alien Mind is available at Amazon.com or on his website at www.alienmindbook.org. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as the X Zone continues right here from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell. Don't go away.